Season 6 of the CSC Challenger Series gets underway February 26th. How about we discuss these brackets, folks? It's the CSC Selection Show. Will Stuart here. Alongside me is Mr. Sean Green and, of course, Nick Dichiria. Sean, we've got some big-time competitors this year in our field, as well as some new faces. What do you think?
Yeah, Division I is obviously stacked from top to bottom. The averages are insane. We have 11 players that are averaging over a 5 coming into this. That is a record. It's insane to even say that. We have 3 players that are throwing above a 5.8 as their average heading into this season. It's going to be absolutely insane. But we're going to start off with Division II here, and I just want to talk about a couple of facts. First of all, the range difference between number 1 and number 32 in Division II is 0.269 in average. To put that in perspective for you, if you're like, I don't know what that means, that is the range difference between the 4th highest average in Division I and the 5th highest average in Division I. So, I mean, it can't get any closer. I believe that's closer than last season's was in Season 5. And we're not even talking about really the elephant in the room. 1/4 of the field that is playing in Division II this season, 8 players, played in Division I last season. And that includes a 7th, 8th finish from Steve Diker. That includes a 9th through 12th finish from Jason Hawkinson. But yeah, Johnny Lackey, Jason Hawkinson, Jake Smith, Austin Braswell, Nick East, Mike Scarborough, Steve Hennings, and Steve Diker all were Division I players of the CSC Challenger Series last season. Nick, it seems like we're in for quite a ride.
Yeah, you can't understate that enough. I mean, when you're looking at previous champions and finalists and high finishers in Division I and Division II, this field doesn't care. This field is saying, hey, we're tougher than ever. We're going to be ready. If you're a debutant, you're actually probably favored, in my opinion, just because we haven't seen what you had to bring to the table yet. And these players are going to come out of the gates gunning here. I mean, I'm really impressed with some of this talent that we're going to have in this field. I know you guys are going to be impressed with some of these players and these matchups as well. And I'm really excited to just dig right into the nitty gritty.
I mean, real quick, the matchups for Division II are insane for Week 1, and it's just going to get worse and worse. Division I matchups for Week 1, you're going to want to stay tuned for that because we might have some players quit right away with who they have to play in Week 1 because we got some heavy hitters coming out of the gate playing against some heavy hitters. I can't wait for that.
It starts off right, man. It starts off right. Round 1, some brutal matchups, folks. Let's get right to it. How about our first quarter of Division number 2? Here we go.
All right, so the first matchup you're going to have is Jeremiah Berger. Maya Berger taking on Christian Broussard. Maya is a former finalist in Division II from Michigan area. Taking on our West Coaster, Christian Broussard, who's actually been shown a lot on our All-Star Triples events in the PPD Nationals. So it's nice to see him in this CSC Division II for the first time. On the other side there, you got Cooper Olson taking on Brandon Neal. So white belt is back. We're going to get some bathroom selfies back in this bad boy. And Nick, what about those other two?
Yeah, you got Bob Anderson versus Gerald Rutledge there. So a fantastic matchup. And Gerald, one of those players from Texas. I don't feel like he gets enough time in the spotlight because of how many talented players are out there. And then Bob Anderson, of course, coming off that CDI win with Cheyenne Richards. On the other side, Zach Fuchs and Corey Beck there. 2 players I'm excited to see, although I have to be honest here, they're the ones that are kind of coasting on my radar. And I'm really curious to see who's going to win that one. There's a lot of interesting matchups that are going to come early on in these brackets here, Sean.
Who is your favorite to get to that top 4 out of those 8 players?
Yeah, so looking at those 8 players there, I think Christian Broussard is very interesting because he's one of those guys that he was one off the alternate when you look at the beginning of Season 1 there. He narrowly missed it. He was number 1. I was number 2 on the alternates for that season. And I think he's going to have a tough matchup going against a seasoned veteran. So I think Jeremiah Berger will probably edge out there. But I think Berger and Anderson are going to have a really tough round 2 stunner of a match. So it could go either way. I'm going to slightly edge out Bob Anderson to win out that half. On the other end there, I think Olson's probably the most impressive of them. And we're going to see if he can continue on. And then Anderson could go either way for me.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said that better myself. So let's head to the second quarter. of Division II.
Yeah, you got Matt Perdon versus Jake Smith there. John Hussman and Chase Stewart. Did not have enough confidence pronouncing that. And who do we have on the other side here?
Yeah, how about Fahonix's Chris Watson taking on Fahonix's Mike Scarborough? That's going to be quite a matchup. We, of course, have a former champion of Division II and taking on one of the top dogs in Division I for quite a while. Throughout a lot of these seasons, he was one of those favorites, kind of a giant killer there. He can do some damage in Division II, I'm telling you right now. And then, of course, one of our other defending champions, Mr. Brett Hollanday, he's taken on quite a tough test right out the gate in Nick East, who has the second highest average for Division II this season.
Yeah, I have so much to say and not enough time to say everything I want to say about these matchups. But Jake Smith at NDA, I named him as one of my standout performers and debatably one of the MVPs of NDA Team Dart. If he has any shape of that form carrying into this, he's going to be one of the favorites in my opinion. He's one of the toughest guys in the field. And then of course you have people like John Hussman, someone we've seen on all-star trips and nationals playing out of all seasons, someone that has had those runs in these remote tournaments before and has been waiting for an opportunity like this. And don't even get me started on the Arizona versus Arizona violence that we have going on over there on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this quarter right here, right? And let's just break it down. You have the top three in averages coming into the season in this quarter. That's Mike Scarborough, that's Nick East, and that's John Hussman. Also in this, you have two former Division I players from last season, Mike Scarborough and Jake Smith. This is going to be a tough test. Whoever gets through this quarter is going to have to put in a lot of work to get through this one.
And Brett Hollanday, just a quick note here before we move on to our next quarter. He is half a mark below what his season winning average was when he won the CSC. He's going to have to bring that standard back because the game has only gotten tougher. And if it took him a 5-0 to win before, it's going to take him a 5-0 to win again, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're not losing any of the other major players in the field. And with Brett, I will say that the season that he did win, he did raise his average by at least that from the beginning of the season through to the end. So he has it in him. He just needs to catch fire for like an 8 weeks, 9 week, 10 week stretch. You know,
boys,
absolutely couldn't agree
it's
more.
Got to happen soon.
I'm just going to say it here real quick, just to chime in. Jake Smith, my sleeper pick. Mike Scarborough, definitely the favorite. I think our winner is potentially going to come from this quarter myself.
I don't think that's
couldn't
a bad
agree more with that
option at all. All right, let's go to that third quarter. Starting it off with Christian Beard taking on KC Jones. Following that up is two Division I players from last season, Jake Hawkinson and Johnny Lackey. And over on that other side, there's some big names as well, bud.
Yeah, we got Tyler Hensey and Hunter Van Beek. Statistically, the youngest matchup we've had in CSC history, by the way. Going up against Ken Rip and Steve Diker. Statistically, not the youngest matchup we've had in CSC history.
Yeah, so you look at this third quarter, right? And we just mentioned the second quarter and how terribly difficult that's going to be and whatever. Tyler Hensey is, of course, breakout star from last season of Division II. He's played in Division I. You have Ken Rip, who's played in Division I and Division II. I believe he's played every season that we've been a part of it. Same thing with Scuba Steve, former Division I player from last season. Yeah, Johnny Lackey, Jake Hawkinson is going to be a tough matchup too. A lot of barn burners in this quarter as well. Another very tough quarter of the bracket.
Well, and a lot of these players coming off some very good end of 2023 performances. Christian Beard at the Arizona Bull Shooter having some really strong performances against some very tough field. And KC Jones at the Plover tournament actually beat out Luke Pritzel in a double dip, which is a player that we may be talking about later on. So interesting to note that he really does have that top gear. I do think, most importantly, on the other half here, Ken Rip and Tyler Hensey, they want to have that rematch from last season, the old guard versus the new guard. Yeah. And I think that's both going to give them some extra motivation to perform well.
Man, I didn't even think about that. That's awesome.
Just real quick, I think that Ken Rip Steve Diker match for me is going to be a highlight match. Ken Rip is averaging a 4.698, Steve Diker a 4.660, so definitely a one to watch out for me.
Yeah, 0.098 is the difference in their averages. That's crazy.
Looking on over here for the fourth quarter. Speaking of crazy, we're gonna have plenty of crazy stuff. Tyler Wahi and Shane Watson and Richard Serban's Austin Brazel, the Florida quarter over there. 3 out of 4 players being from Florida. And who do we have on the other side?
Yeah, Don Kirby, the mouth from Indy, is making his first appearance in Division II of the CSC Challenger Series. He takes on former Division I player from last season, Steve Hennings. And then, of course, at the bottom there, you got Tyler Holmes and Josh Crescini. And you thought you were going to be the one who mispronounced the name the worst. Yeah, not even close. And what's bad is that I actually had that one nailed before we, did this. So, that's just what happens.
It is. I will say, just looking at those matches, we got some Florida on Florida violence, right? Rich Sturbans, Austin Braswell, defending champion Sturbans. You have to edge out a little favor for him as he's an old guard getting back into the game. His game is going to continue to improve, and he's going to push Austin just like he does it with every match as they struggle to get through that. And most importantly, Shane Watson there. Last season, Brandon Pritz was the guy that everyone was hyping up and said, this guy is going to be in the mix from Florida. That's who Shane Watson is right now in the local Florida community. Out of the woodworks, out of nowhere, in the mid-4s already. He's going to play like he has something to prove because he has to prove something against a very tough opponent.
I like it.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it any better yourself. Again, I'm going to have that insight on the Indy player. I know I mentioned it last season when I saw James Edward in there. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, Don Kirby, when he is on his game, is a 5.0 plus shooter. And he has done that in tournaments before. He's done that in trips leagues before. So he has the game, if he is on that night, that he is going to perform extremely well. And it's going to be a really tough test for Steve Hennings. I think both of them have a very tough draw in the first round.
Nick, give me one person from Division II that wins this.
I actually got 3 because I'm cheating
here.
One. I don't care. I'm saying
one
3.
Person.
If I had to pick one, it's Jake Smith. But my dark horse is Don Kirby.
Ooh.
Okay.
Take the indie guy. Thanks. Appreciate that. You're not allowed to steal my indie guy. No. The beautiful thing about Division II, right, is it doesn't matter if it's the 32nd person on that list or the first person on that list. Like Mike Scarborough is technically the favorite, right? 0.269 is doable on any occasion from any player at any time. So just going into this, I'm telling you right now, we're picking kind of a crapshoot on who we think is going to win this. That being said, it's Scuba Steve Diker.
Wow. Okay, well, you boys stole both my picks, fellas. You stole both my picks. Yep, I was going to pick either Jake or Steve. After he picked Jake, I was going to go for Steve, so now you guys both picked my picks. So, well.
You can bandwagon. That's fine.
Fellas, I'm going to go ahead and skip it. I'm going to go ahead and say that Ken Rip battle's going to matter. I got Ken Rip this one.
I think
Ken
it will.
Rip. Well,
yeah,
there we go.
That first matchup is going to be intense.
It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big one. Let's take it on over to Division I, the moment you've all been waiting for. Some big ones, big names in this field, that's for sure.
Cannot wait.
A PDC Tour player, former PDC Tour player, seniors darts master. Let's go ahead and get on to it. Our first quarter of Division I.
He's the defending seniors world champion.
And we didn't even mention Mike Maloney, defending champion.
No, we have not even talked about Mike Maloney yet, and that's saying a lot. You got Todd Wigman taking on Sugar Shane Johnson there at the top of this bracket. Then you have JC Martinez taking on Brandon Kessler, followed by Dwayne Johansson and Luke Pritzel. And then, who are those guys? Oh, that's our defending champion, Michael Maloney, taking on our defending fourth place finisher, Mr. Jeremiah Millar. That's going to be quite an interesting matchup right out of the gate. Maybe the ultimate highlight of Division I here in this entire bracket.
Couldn't agree more with that. I mean, Mike Maloney, Jeremiah Millar going down to the wire last time, where Millar, of course, unfortunately fell short in the tiebreaker, but was a stellar match and one of our most popular matches I think we've ever had in the CSC. So to see them here, I mean, if you're the other guys in this quarter, you're not going to be super happy about that. But let's not count out some of the other names here, with Luke Pritzel blowing the socks off me and Will at Whammo and continuing his great performance at Plover. I mean, he's a guy that I think a lot of people don't know and will know after the season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. His now coming into this is above Ram. It's above Rick Hensey, Derek Hinkle, Kenny Doyle. Big names that we've had in Division 1 of the CSC Challenger Series. So he's coming in as potentially one of the favorites right away. Now, that being said, of course, if he wins his first round match, he gets two players that are ranked higher than him in average. One of those two players. This is the number 2 average of Mike Maloney, the number 4 average in Jeremiah Millar. So Luke has a tough draw. But if talent is talent alone, he has a chance there.
He does. And real quick on the other side, Todd Wigman coming in with his highest average we've seen him come into with the CSC, showing that he's on form in a close matchup against a veteran of Sugar Shane Johnson. Both these guys are going to want to get this first round under their belt to feel confident on their run here. And really, it's hard to give an edge either way. And JC Martinez coming off the eye surgery. We're curious to see if that's going to translate into his game and see if it leads him to success against a in-form Brandon Kessler coming off his WCS run with Olivia Terry.
Yeah, and you just mentioned JC Martinez, Brandon Kessler. Their average difference coming is less than 0.5. The Sugar Shane Johnson, Todd Wigman match actually is the closest overall average from each other. 0.004 is the difference in their average. So, yes, there is no difference between them.
Well, let's take a look at the second quarter here. Dustin Larson versus OG Don Stewart there. Then you got Rick Hensey, Kenny Doyle, familiar CSC matchup. Ram Guevara, Danny Baggish, the WCS men's participants that were in the finals. And Brian Dennis, Jeffrey Johnson, veterans of the CSC. This is a dangerous quarter to be in as well. I mean, they're all going to be dangerous. There's not going to be anything easy here, right? But you got D-Bag playing amazing right now. You got Ram that's always as strong as ever. You got Rick Hensey, Kenny Doyle, 2-time matchups, and Don Stewart, Dustin Larson. I mean, Sean, what do you think about this?
I mean, you're going back to the OG of Division 1, Brian Dennis, Season 1, who had the best match, the best average of the entire season of 5.65, which when you think back, right, how much time has passed and how ridiculous that sounds now. Of just how average that is, weirdly enough, in the CSC Challenger Series Division 1 now. But yeah, you mentioned it. Dustin Larson, Don Stewart, the two newcomers to this quarter of the bracket. And they have a tough bracket. Rick Hensey, Kenny Doyle down there is just an ultimate showdown every single time they play each other. And then, of course, Ram and Danny is just going to be one for the ages.
Yeah, Rick Hensey, Kenny Doyle, 9-6 in season 2, 9-8 in season 2, going Rick Hensey's way, 9-6 in season 3, going Rick Hensey's way. Kenny knows that Rick has his number and wants to change the number, figure out what it is, and dial in. And Don Stewart, third place in PA pro singles, losing out to Jules Van Dongen in a tiebreaker to go into the finals against Mike Porterfield. So, some guy named Jules. He's a dragon of some kind. So to see him perform that well in that tough of a field shows that he's coming here to play. He's not just coming for the namesake or anything else. He has the darts right now.
Yeah, so let me ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot here. This second quarter is absolutely ridiculous. Who do you have coming out of this?
You have to take Danny Baggish after his 5-9 performance in the WCS. He has the highest gear right now, and he's more determined than ever. But secondarily, I would take Rick Hensey just because I think with his Win More sponsorship right now that just came out, I think he's going to want to prove to the sponsors that they made the right decision, and I think it's going to give him a little extra gas in the tank here. So I'm going to lean Danny Baggish, but Rick Hensey is a runner-up in this one.
I like those picks. I think that the only match that matters for who gets the top 4 in this quarter is the Ram Guevara Danny Baggish match. Whoever wins that, I think, makes it through the quarter.
Let's see what we have in the next one.
Let's head to Yeah, let's head to the third quarter here, where some doozies are occurring. And we're starting out right out the gate with our female participant in the CSC Challenger Series, Miss Chrissy Grimmel, the WCS champion. The other half of that duo, Danny Baggish, being in that last quarter there. And she takes on the Rabbit, Mr. Kevin Schmitz, who is a former runner-up of Division I of the CSC Challenger Series. And that's a tough battle for Chrissy. That's going to be a really tough matchup for both of them. John Pilgrim, nice to see him in the CSC Challenger Series. Familiar name to all of us, but first time actually playing in the CSC Challenger Series. You like to see that. Taking on Daniel Hawkins. And then Leonard Gates, Mike Carter is just another one of those buzzsaw matchups, right? You got a 5.462 of Leonard Gates. Right now, Mike Carter down a little bit at a 4.917. That's not going to matter week one. I think whoever performs better between the two of them just at that time is going to be able to get through that match. And then at the very bottom, you see it, the PDC Pro, the Dutch Dragon, Mr. Jules Van Doggen, has finally accepted an invite to play in the CSC Challenger Series after we've been bugging him for like 4 seasons now that he's been qualified for. It's great that he is taking the time to actually participate this year. Taking on Tim Adams. And if you're Tim Adams, you are just so excited that you got this draw in the first round because you're a top half of the average person in the Division I, and you just got the worst draw.
Okay, but you say that. Tim Adams and Chrissy Grimmel actually have a very close connection. They live near each other, and Tim Adams and Chrissy Grimmel spar against each other consistently. He's used to playing against very tough shots, and he is a person that maybe a lot of you guys haven't seen around for a while, but has not stopped playing the game. He just stopped traveling for a little bit there. So Tim Adams is going to be a little bit of a sleeper, and I think for Jules, that's a great first-round opponent that will test his ability here. And Jules, when I talked to him in PA this last weekend, said, I've never played long format soft tip like this. It's a rare format to find, and I'm curious how I'll do, is his exact take. And he'll have a tough matchup here. And then afterwards, more likely, you're going to see a Jules Leonard Gates highly likely matchup. That's insane. That's absolutely disgusting there. On the other end, John Pilgrim actually did play in season 2 of the CSC, just to give you a quick correction there, where he played Larry Runge. So he's back, and of course, coming off his big finale win as well, is going to want to prove that he can back it up. And I think Chrissy Grimmel and Kevin Schmitz will be the most interesting matchup here because I think their games complement each other and will lead to them both playing well.
So let me get this straight. Did you just argue that Tim Adams did not get the worst draw?
Well, I argued
just look at the right side of that screen. And you just look at those 4 names. You tell me which one stands out to you as an outlier. And I will say that is Tim Adams. Good call. And he has a very tough draw in this bracket.
Not going to argue that it isn't tough. What I am going to argue is that toughness is not going to scare him or face him like it would some other players making their debutante appearance.
I'll say
I'm just going to be on the assumption that no one is going to be scared of anyone in this bracket because otherwise, why are you playing?
True.
I'll say this, fellas. I think this is definitely the toughest quarter, but you can't sleep on Mr. Daniel Hawkins. He's a savvy veteran out of Texas, quality individual and quality shot. He can definitely cause some havoc in this little quarter if he gets going, so definitely want to mention that. But, of course, Leonard Gates, Jules Van Dongen, tough field here for sure.
One last thing on this quarter here.
The second round is just ridiculous. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say one last thing in this quarter here. To everyone that says the CSC is a men's show, Chrissy is here, guys. This is a average-based show, and I'm excited to see her once again qualify. And
did you hear at the beginning of the show, I mentioned that there are 8 players that were in Season 1 or that were in Division 1 last season that are now in Division 2. So Chrissy's in Division 1. So not only has she proven that she's one of the top female shots, she's also one of the top shots. One of the top 32 shots in PBD leagues.
Couldn't agree more. But let's look at this fourth quarter here. We have Steve Hilger, Porky, taking on Jed Neal there. And then you got Sean Cafflish, Jamie Kopp going on the other side there. Then looking Derek Hinkle, John Edwards. And then finishing out with Joey Mann and Gary and Cole. What an interesting quarter here. I do think if we're looking just at the big hitters here, this is one of the more open quarters where anybody can make a run here. But of course, my eyes Derek Hinkle threw a 9-darter to start off his year in the Texas Bull Shooter Stream. And he's one of those guys that his father passed away and told him before he passed away, I want you to go and play in the Texas tournament. I want you to go continue chasing your dreams. And I want you to grind it out. And that motivation, that momentum, and that heart and grit that he has right now is truly something to watch out for. And I think is going to be tough for anybody that plays him.
Well, I'm going to surprise you because this will be the closest I ever come to cussing live on air. Derek Hinkle is a hell of a shot, and motivation is a hell of a factor when it comes to having the patience, the understanding, the drive week after week to grind it out against the best 32 players in PPD leagues in a race to 9 all cricket format. I think that favors Derek. Obviously, the draw favors Derek. Not that playing against John Edwards is a favorable draw for anyone, but if you're going to look at a quarter of the bracket that missed all of the really big hitters minus Derek Hinkle, this is the quarter.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. And if I had to take some hard reads here, I do think Hilger over Jed Neal, although I think Jed's going to give him quite the show. Hilger's going to want to play. I think he's had the itch to play a little bit and hasn't been able to travel as much. I'm going to give him the edge over there. And then Sean Cafflish over Jamie Kopp. I think Sean just always tends to bring out some top tier darts when he's on the CSC. I expect to see that out of him again. But if you're looking at Hilger versus Cafflish, I think that's really where the coin flip is here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. I think that there's definitely some favorites in the other 3 matchups. You don't want to ever discount someone like Gary and Cole. You don't want to ever discount someone like Joey Mann, who was the other half of the winner of the finale with Pigworm, if I'm not mistaken. So you can't count out any of these 8 guys. They're all fantastic shots, and we're not putting anything down on them. I have a feeling that someone from Wisconsin gets through this bracket, this quarter.
That's a pretty good quarter guess there. As man, there's just so many tough shots. It's hard to pick a definitive favorite because it's going to get tough for each season. It's about the guy that brings the A game each day. But I see. All right, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead. What do you want to say something? I see it.
Guys, I did not wear this just because of happenstance, right? Jules Van Dongen should be the favorite coming into this, and I know that there's a lot of players that are going to hate me for saying that, because Jules has not proved it in this type of format, whereas Mike Maloney, Leonard Gates, Rick Hensey, all those guys have at this point in time. I still think that, man, when you put talent versus talent up there, it's number 1 Jules, number 2 Danny Baggish, and they are right there next to each other.
Well, for me, I'm just going to go ahead and mention all our top 5, let's be honest, could win this. That being Jules Van Dongen, Mike Maloney, Danny Baggish, Jeremiah Millar, and Leonard Gates. Those are your top 5 averages. But it could be anybody on down the road as well. Let's give us one name, Nick Dichiria, because we already know where Sean's going. Go ahead, Nick.
I'll give you a sleeper pick after he gets his name.
There we go.
I mean, I'm tied between Jules and Baggish here. It's really tough for the definitive favorite. I am going to lean Baggish here for my pick. Maybe it's the Florida bias. Maybe it's something else. But I really do have to say that the numbers he's putting up right now, on the other end, dark horse, I'm going to take Derek Hinkle.
All righty. What's your dark horse there, Sean?
This is going to shock some people, but we really can't get away with not mentioning this person. Mike Maloney is my dark horse, and I mean that.
Get the heck out of here.
Well, think about this, though. No, you're right that it should not be a dark horse pick. I'm copping out big time by calling that my dark horse pick. But if you think about this and you look at that list of CSC Challenger Series participants for Division 1, 2 names stick out, and it almost is like we're ignoring Mike Maloney, the defending 2-time champion, by saying Jules Van Dongen and Danny Baggish is the top 2. And I know that that's going to make him specifically upset as the soft tip connoisseur that he is. And I think that that's what is going to make him the dark horse pick. And I feel bad for Jeremiah Millar that has to play him right out the gate, because I think you're going to get your best version of Mike Maloney there.
Well, I'll go ahead and say it. He's my pick. Mike Maloney is going to win this
Good.
bad boy because
I'm glad that one of us at least picked it.
You guys have been sleeping on him a little bit.
He deserves it. He absolutely deserves to be picked.
He's only
not deserves to be slept on.
What, 0.013 behind Jules Van Dongen? So,
yep,
that's my pick.
You're not wrong.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, I mean, he is a 2-time title holder. The only other one in Division I being Leonard Gates, who
we have barely mentioned.
Yeah, who we've also barely mentioned. It just shows how tough the field is, and really the players are turning out because you guys keep tuning in, and that's part of the reason why we see this field get tougher, and that's why we want to hear who you guys want to see win, who you're cheering for, and who you got in this.
Exactly right, folks. You've heard the field now for both Division I and Division II. You've seen the matchups. Who do you have, folks? Let us know who's going to win Season 6 of the CSC Challenger Series. Thanks for watching our CSC selection show. We appreciate it. From Sean Green, Nick Dichiria, and, of course, Will Stuart here. Thanks for watching.
Have a great night, guys.